watching The Human Condition. And I'm your host, Jeffrey Pertz. This show is about natural law, the truth, the occult, mind control, and how consciousness manifests in us. We will look at the axioms that have been given to us to control our reality. Axioms are propositions or statements that have been already regarded as established. The axioms that we buy into are what put us in the world of illusion that we live in right now. We will be looking at and understanding the true self that exists within us all in this show as well. If you know the self, you can know the universe. It is information that is a requirement for consciousness to grow. It is not information that should be hidden or occulted. The occult is a word that has a bad stigma. The occult comes from the Latin derivative occultare. It means to be hidden or concealed from sight, not easily accessible to vision. You cannot see or hold the force of gravity, but it still objectively binds us to its laws. Same can be said about natural law, which are the laws of nature that govern our behavior. Natural law is the law of morality. Even if we are not aware of these laws, we are still unable to escape the consequences. Furthermore, if these laws are ignored, it causes suffering. Suffering and truth have a direct correlation with each other. If truth is ignored, it causes suffering. If truth is harmonized with, it causes freedom and abundance. So we will be first starting off with what the truth actually is. Been studying extensively about what the truth really is and have come to the truth about the truth, and here it is. Truth is objective. We want things to be true, but that does not make it so. What makes truth the way it is our behavior that we take and how we manifest in the world. To believe something at face value is not always what it actually is. Truth does not change. Truth is that which does not waver. Truth is not perception. Truth is seen through the veil of perception. Truth is how things manifest in the world and become real. You can see the truth work. Like I said earlier, the truth is objective. If you align yourself with the truth, then you will not suffer. If you don't align yourself with the truth, then you will suffer, and this is why. There are two ways to be fooled. One is to believe what is not true, and the other is to refuse to accept what is true. Suffering comes from believing illusions that do not serve us, and rejecting that which is true. Truth requires knowledge. Knowledge is only power when it is applied or acted upon, and that's called wisdom. To know is to be in alignment with truth. That's what truth is. There's an objective truth in the world that everyone ignores, and it is causing harm. And that's what I'm about to get into, which is the human condition, the name of the show, and why not talk about what it actually is. The human sickness is so severe that few can bear to look at it, but those who do will come to be well. Human nature is neither inherently good or evil. It is the operating conditions or the environment the human being is in that influences behavior to a great extent. The largest portion of our human nature is that we are programmable, and that results in the human condition, not human nature. There is very little human nature. Humanity, especially in the West, has conditioned to accept everything the way it is presented, no matter how evil or unjust it is. All in all, the human condition is, and mostly it always has been, except for very small groups of people, in a state of ignorance of truth, apathy, and cowardice. Ignorance is the evil of the world. Ignorance is different than nescience. Nescience means to not have the information presented. So you just don't have the information at all, therefore you cannot act upon it. Ignorance is ignoring the information even though it is presented. So nescience comes from the Latin word nasci, which means being born. It's like asking like a little newborn baby, like, hey, newborn baby with a completely empty hard drive head, can you tell me how to get to Highway 55? People have become desensitized to their emotions through trauma, such as school and just everyday life, considering the fact that what I'm about to get into, the human condition is, in fact, slavery. People are conditioned with fear. Fear is the driver of every choice for most individuals in the world. There's consequences if you don't. Some of the mind control tactics that they use to keep you in fear are duress and coercion. And here's what those are. Duress is threat of violence, constraints, or other actions brought to bear on someone to do something against their will or better judgment. Coercion is to persuade an unwilling person to do something by using force or threat. So that's the human condition is slavery. And even furthermore, and to add to the pile of proof that the human condition is slavery, let's look at the word government. Government comes from the Latin word governere, which means to control. And then the second part is mentis, which means mind. Government means mind control, truly, and at its most fundamental meaning is mind control. And therefore, if you control the mind, you control the body. If you control the body, that is slavery. Government is slavery. So what are the causes to the human condition? What is it that you buy into that causes this to happen? You buy into mind control, social engineering, psychological warfare, divide and conquer, Hegelian dialectic bullshit. That's what most people buy into. Part of this mind control and social engineering, psychological warfare would be solipsism. Solipsism is the belief that nothing can ever be known. No truth in knowledge. There's no truth and no knowledge. It's all subjective. That's what solipsism is saying, that it's just a worldview of randomness. Solipsism comes from the word solus, which means alone, and then ipse, which means self, alone self. A lot of atheists and nihilists are conscious solipsists, and some people are not aware that they're solipsists. Again, solipsism is the belief that nothing can ever be known. And even if you could know it, you couldn't convey it to anyone else. You couldn't convey that truth or information to anyone else. Another way of looking at solipsism is that a solipsist believes that if they cease to exist, the entire universe ceases to exist, so that their perception is the only thing that derives truth. Authority. Authority is the immoral and false belief that someone can rule over others just because of jurisdiction, which means subject to relative laws by decree. So in other words, it's saying just because they said so. Religion is another negative cause to the human condition. And I'm not talking about spirituality, I'm talking about religion. If it's not religion, it's spirituality. And here's the difference. I mean, religion means to, if you break the word down, it can mean to tie you to the creator. So you have relegare, which means to tie back, and then you have gen, which is to generate or create. But also, religion can mean to tie to the creator or to link to the creator. So the meaning has two meanings. It can mean to tie to God or to thwart from further progress, to tie to creation or to thwart back from creation. That's what religion can mean, and it has meant the negative connotation, which would be to relegate back, to thwart back from further progress. That's what religion is used for these days. So, and that's spiritual warfare. That's what we're talking about. Religion is considered to be one of the biggest problems in the world by people like me. Religion is a system of sociological control based in unchallenged, erroneous, and dogmatic beliefs, which is specifically designed to hold back the progress of human consciousness. The term religion, as I'm using it, does not merely refer to the belief system of cultural religion. Religion in a wider sense must be recognized as an active form of mind control placed into society by social engineers. Religion in the wider view of the term includes government, money, carnism, nihilism, escapism, hedonism, atheism. I could keep going on. People have a wrong and immature and mind-controlled understanding and foundation of what spirituality is. Another negative thing that has caused a crappy human condition is the negative use of the Hegelian dialectic. This is how it goes. This is how the Hegelian dialectic has been used to synthesize power over people. World government or governments cause a problem for the masses to fight over. Split factions within the masses fight over the problem produced by the government/governments, world governments. The fighting and friction causes trauma to the masses, and they become a desperate empty slate for programming. Then the government introduces a solution that results in synthesis of more power over the masses. That's how the United States is run. You have the left and the right wing of the bird. You have the Republicans and the Democrats, and they're part of the same bird. You have dialectics all over the world. You have religious dialectics. You have racial dialectics. Anything you can be divided on can be a negative dialectic. There are 8 tools that governments and world governments/government, whatever you want to call it, and whatever it is now, it seems to be turning into a world government now as we speak. But anyway, government uses tools to put us in this slavery human condition that we're in. Those tools are media, politics, and this is one category, police and military, and this is also one category, food and drink, it's one category, healthcare, education, science, and religion. Let me explain that a little bit. Media, they not only do they lie to you, for example, like 9/11. So you have things like Project Mockingbird, which is a CIA operation that had a CIA narrative pushed through the news networks to lockstep people into on the same page of mind control. And you can look up Project Mockingbird. It is a real thing, and it's in effect to this day, and you can prove it. Somebody has proved it through videos that they have put together of all different types of news corporations, Fox News, CNN, MSNBC, and then local news affiliates, all saying the exact same thing, very scripted, the exact same thing. Look up "This Will Be Dangerous to Our Democracy," Project Mockingbird, and that's a video. "This Will Be Dangerous to Our Democracy" is a video that will show proof of that in action. And we're going to move on to the next tool of mind control used by the government, which is politics. Politics is nothing more than somebody writing policies down on a piece of paper. And all politicians are just bought and paid for banker politician puppets. The world's really run by behavioral psychologists who have a lot of money and power and are backed by a military industrial complex. And these behavioral psychologists know humanity very well and are exploiting them, and now probably getting ready to wipe us off the face of the planet. So we're going to move on to the third tool of mind control used by the government, which would be the police and military. So those politicians write things down on a piece of paper, and then these police and military actually physically enforce that shit. Well, the police especially, and they enforce all laws in the United States, and some of those laws are unjust and downright wicked, and they give their free will away to somebody else and to money to harm people through that. The police are nothing more than a cult. They're nothing more than a gang that it's a gang that's a protected class. It's a gang that's allowed to get away with stuff. And let's talk about the military. The military isn't there to protect you and to protect our assets in this country. The military is there to show how bad and horrible things can get if you don't obey your government. Militaries and wars for a very long time, and still are to this day, and most of them are funded by a group of people that have a common interest. And then therefore it becomes a dialectic that they can use to synthesize power. And we're going to move on to the fourth category, which would be food and drink. Food and drink is a big one because, food can affect your ability to think properly and also just act properly. The food that we take in, garbage in makes us feel like garbage and garbage out. And then also, what I mean by drink, I mean what's in the water. Not only, if you've read the water reports in your area, they're probably disgusting and have rats crawling through the pipes, just like around here. But they put chlorine in the water, which, yeah, it sterilizes the water, but it's not meant to be ingested. And if you're for some crazy ass reason going to drink tap water, filter it. Another thing that's in water that is the most damaging thing I think it is the number one atrocity to the human species, is putting fluoride in the fucking water. There is plenty of evidence and plenty of research done that fluoride, and for a very long time before the United States started putting it in the water, they did research on the exact same kind of fluoride that we use in our water, that it messes your brain up. It affects the part of the brain that deals with resisting authority. And also, fluoride calcifies your pineal gland and makes you calcified as a person. That's part of your mammalian brain. The person who started using fluoride in the water in the gulags in Russia and whatnot, and all those prison camps back in the early World War days, said that anyone who drinks fluoride for, I think it was a year, anyone who drinks fluoride in the water for more than a year will no longer mentally or physically be the same. They really can't control how much fluoride is going through your faucet. And on top of that, it's the same fluoride that they used in the gulags. I think a byproduct of aluminum is the type of fluoride that they're using now as a byproduct. You got to figure out how to get rid of those byproducts. Healthcare and the pharmaceutical industry. Healthcare is another tool of mind control for the government. A lot of the pharmaceuticals that are used by the healthcare system to treat people are actually byproducts of the petrol industry. They're oil byproducts from making oil. And also healthcare, Rockefeller medicine isn't designed to actually get people better. It's designed to keep people sick but keep people alive while making a lot of money off of them. Another tool of mind control that's used by the government, which is education. Ladies and gentlemen, if you have your kids in public school, they're not teaching your kids how to think. They're teaching your kids how to follow orders, and that's it. Even college campuses, you have a whole bunch of kids not learning. They're learning how to follow orders. I'm sorry, they're learning how to follow orders. They're not getting true holistic education. Science is scientism, which is a religion. So science is something that you're obviously lied to about. They keep a lot of things from you. They give you half-truths about science. Government does, and they are hiding a lot of things. And then, another tool of mind control would be religion. And we talked about religion earlier, being a false spirituality. Money is another tool. Money is not energy itself. You cannot eat money to live. Money is a counterfeit energy source. It is a construct that lives in the mind. Money is the ultimate religion because what do you do after worship? You spend money. Most people serve two gods. The people who own you want you to pay attention to their system all the time, and getting you to pay the system all the time does just that. It's nothing more than a dogmatic belief that you pay with your energy. It's a tool to get you to never know yourself because of what you spend your time doing to get money. Before money, it was direct rulership. When we became too many, we were given money to control us from the inside. We're going to move on to the remedy to all of this, I think. And, well, actually, I know this would work. Natural law. You've probably never heard of what natural law is. People think of natural law as is it common law? No. Common law is based off of natural law. Is it law of the land? No. Law of the land is based off of natural law. It's definitely not maritime. We're going to go into what rights are before we get into the definition of natural law and describing and defining that. And before I get started on defining a right and wrong, and I'm going to say this a lot, right and wrong are the same as true and untrue. Right and wrong are the same as moral and immoral. Okay, so this is what rights are. Rights are any action that does not harm any other human being or animal. Rights cannot be taken away because they are given to you by creation itself and no one else. So that means, that's a fact. You are endowed with rights and freedom by creation. It is woven into creation itself. It is fundamental. It is inherent. It is inherent to nature and you. It is inherent to you. It's impossible to take away. Rights cannot be taken away because they're given to you by creation itself. One can't give extra rights to anyone else. That doesn't exist in nature either. Any action that is not a right is a wrong. No one can stop you from not harming anyone. No one can stop you from not harming anyone. Period. It's that simple. Okay, so I'm going to get into the non-aggression principle, which means harm none. And that includes self-defense. And those are all right actions. Those are all rights. Instigating violence first is not a right. It is a wrong. It is not moral. It is immoral. But stopping violence is a right. See what I'm saying? So right equals correct and moral and does not result in harm, and it is based in natural law. Wrong is incorrect and immoral and is not based on truth and is not based in natural law and results in harm. People don't truly know what their own rights are. And because they don't know what their own rights are, they don't know what your rights are. And because of that, they don't care about your rights. The uneducated, that is. A right is... Let's get into what a right actually is. Again, a right is any action that does not harm any living being, and that includes animals. And so here's the definition to natural law, what we've all been waiting for. You're probably very curious about what natural law is. Natural law is the inherent to creation, binding, immutable, invisible, and instantaneous set of governing dynamics for behavior for beings that possess the ability to discern right from wrong behavior / actions. Natural law is a law of nature that deals with behavior, period. It is the law of morality. And knowing what rights are in natural laws, when I say that natural law is inherent to creation, it's not somebody's dictates. It's not somebody saying so. It is nature saying so. It is creation saying so. Natural law is binding. It holds you. Natural law is immutable. It can't be stopped. There's nothing you can do to change it. It's invisible, but natural law is objective. You can't see or hold a natural law, but natural law works objectively through the outcome after behavior. And yes, it is instantaneous. Natural law will instantaneously kick you in the balls if you are immoral. And we are all metaphorically getting kicked in the balls and or tits right now by government, who are dark, evil, behavioral psychologists who want to rule over you forever and ever and ever. Anyway, I'm going to move on here. So that's the definition of natural law right there and expanded upon. Let's look at the word nature. Nature comes from an old Egyptian Semitic language, just like old Egyptian, and it means infinite forms of creation, or nature means God. It was the same thing to the ancient Egyptians. Nature and God were infinite forms of existence. Therefore, natural law is nature's legislation. You don't have to have dudes writing policy down on a piece of paper and then having the police to enforce it. Nature does that for you. It's cause and effect. It's consequentialism. People are conditioned to not see these consequences occur. They're conditioned to be okay with these consequences that occur. These negative consequences. Sorry. People as a whole are conditioned to not understand natural law in order to hold and maintain a power differential over the masses. The few control the immoral, broken many. When morality increases, freedom increases. It would work if people knew true natural law morality. Harmonizing with natural law causes the world of plenty for everyone. Because with 100% morality, you get 100% freedom. You won't have conflict. You won't have control over any. You won't have the erroneous belief that authority exists, forcibly being manifested into the world as though it does exist. And so, natural law is going to be one episode, just so you know, but that's natural law in a nutshell for you, and we're going to move on to how we perceive natural law. Consciousness isn't made by the brain. It seems more that consciousness is received by the brain. Consciousness is a field, a frequency is what it's starting to look like, is what science is beginning to see, if they are not lying to themselves and going into scientism. They want you to believe in a dead world of you being a robot controlled by just your physicality. No, you are a conscious, spiritual individual. This is what you truly are. I'm going to go ahead and explain to you what you truly are. You are pure consciousness having the experience as the person as you right now. I am pure consciousness having the experience as Jeffrey Pertz. And being in a body, of course, does limit consciousness, but we come from pure consciousness is what I'm saying. And so we are threefold consciousness. We are thought, emotion, and action. Like I said earlier, consciousness is the system that runs the universe / existence. And this has been pretty much proven in the double slit experiment. And I would advise you to look at the double slit experiment up. The double slit experiment shows that consciousness and physicality are not independent from each other. They are the same. And also, the ancients used to say that the universe was spoken into existence. And that's in a lot of the old books. You've probably heard in the Old Testament, God said, spoken with a breath, a spirit. But we're not going to get into quantum physics right here. We're going to get into kind of how the brain works. And, I'm not a brain surgeon, and I'm not a doctor or anything like that. But if you have just the smallest understanding of what the brain does, then you can better control it and make a better brain for yourself. The first part of the brain we're going to talk about is the R complex, or the reptile brain. It is the most primitive part of the brain. It is what the reptiles have. They don't have any of the higher functioning parts of the brain that we do, but we do. We have higher functioning parts of the brain, but reptiles don't. But we do have a reptile brain, a throwback. And that part of the brain is responsible for, first of all, it gets the stimulus first. It gets this physical stimulus first, and it consists of the brainstem and cerebellum. And the reptilian complex, or R complex, is responsible for metabolic rate, heartbeat, some body temperature things, and fight or flight. The next part of the brain would be the mammalian brain, that has the word mammal in it. That part of the brain is also known as the limbic system. The mammalian brain / limbic system makes our emotions capable of being expressed through our body. It pumps the necessary neuropeptides in our body to make us feel the consequence of our emotions. It is the hypothalamus, the hippocampus, the amygdala, the pineal gland, and the pituitary glands. And that's what consists of the mammalian brain. And the next part up is the neocortex, or the human brain. This part of the brain is responsible for higher order thinking. It is the only part of the brain that distinguishes us from the animal kingdom. It's part of the brain that's responsible for art and science and speech and verbal and written communication. It helps us do those higher order things. The right side of the neocortex is considered the sacred feminine among occultists, and it is directly connected to the mammalian brain, or the limbic system. And so the right side of the brain the right side of the neocortex is creativity, nurturing, empathy, intuition, compassion, and holistic thought. The left side of the neocortex is connected to the R complex of the brain, and is considered to be responsible for logistics, math, intellect, science, and analytical thought. And through that's how the two ways of consciousness manifest. And that would be inside, which is thought, emotion, and then outside, which is action. So the R complex is the sacred masculine, and the mammalian brain, or the limbic brain, is the sacred feminine. And those give birth to the neocortex, or the divine child, as the occultists say. And when I say occultists, what I said earlier about the occult is that it simply means, and always has meant, something that is hidden from sight, and doesn't mean you should not look at it. And like I said earlier, when stress and trauma is applied to the brain with toxins like adrenaline and other stress hormones, it causes, and I do mean other stress hormones, there's other stress hormones, it causes damage to the brain, and it causes a brain imbalance. So when you're constantly under stress, it causes trauma to your brain and causes a brain imbalance. And I'll describe these to you and what happens. I'm going to describe a left brain imbalance to you. And that's when your mammalian brain is damaged from trauma, from stress, and other such things, mind control. And it is the master controller reptile tyrant. So when you get a left brain imbalance, you become the master. That's usually your cops, your military, your people who like to rule over others. And then you have the right side imbalance, and that is a broken R complex of the brain, and that causes a right brain imbalance would cause somebody to be a submissive slave. I call that the submissive slave. Causes one not to be able to fight back. And so with these brain imbalances, they use these, and not everyone is just left or right brain imbalance. It can oscillate depending on who they're interacting with in day-to-day life and how they're interacting. And so that's what the government uses to gain power over people. They cause stress to you, it messes your brain up, and then you become imbalanced, and that's why you have all this depression, blah, 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 superiority complexes and stuff like that. So, you know what? I'm getting tired, and I'm going to get to the conclusion here. And the conclusion is the reason why I started to do this so early is why I rushed this project. Because of a little viral sickness I'm going to call Blovid, crime teen or something. I don't know. And what it is, it's a smokescreen for an 80 to 90% population decrease. And it's a plan that's underway right now because humanity has proven as a whole that we are dead in our thoughts, emotions, and actions. We let illusions run our life without question. You can't hold Blovid to the Koch's postulate. And the PCR test that they're using is not for diagnostic use. Kary Mullis, who developed the PCR test, specifically said that. And also all the PCR tests specifically say that in their inserts. Until world governments decide to actually start using bio or electromagnetic weaponry on us, such as 60 gigahertz millimeter wave weapons, those are in a lot of the cell phone towers. And that's not me just making it up. Cell phone towers are like giant industrial strength Wi-Fi antenna, and the 60 gigahertz millimeter wave stuff is crazy because it can be used as a weapon, and what it does is it can not only stop your ability to absorb oxygen, it messes your blood cells up, so then your blood can't even oxygenate. And I've read all about this in books, and I would advise you to do the same. Yes, books. You can read books and get information from those things as well. They still exist. And so, what I'm saying is that, right now, Blovid, until the world government actually decides to start using bioweaponry or electromagnetic 60 gigahertz millimeter wave weapons to make people sick, the belief that Blovid is dangerous is more dangerous than Blovid itself, considering the fact that the supply chains have been broken pretty bad, and if there's any more shutdowns, it will continue to get worse. Your inherent rights are being taken away. They're forcing people to wear certain things that cause you to not have a very good immune system. The whole mask wearing thing is garbage, and is no proof of claim that they can give you that the masks actually protect you. People giving other people's rights away. It's just become a mess, and so that's why I'm doing this. I'm not going to really be covering too much Blovid stuff unless, it really calls for it. So anyway, that concludes, and thank you. Like and subscribe if you're on one of those platforms. If not, just spread this message like I said over and over again, and knowledge about this will maybe help bring us out of this situation. Thank you, and have a nice day.